The Commanders' offense is loaded with star power, but the decision to trade Brian Robinson Jr. was made possibly by what the team saw from its young running backs all the way back in OTAs. That and more right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Commanders. I'm David Harrison, your guy on the ground, covering the Washington Commanders for WUSA 9. Right here with you 5 days a week. You can also find me writing about the Commanders for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. And you can follow me on X at DHarrison82. I want to thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen or view. And a special thank you goes out to all of the everydayers, those of you who come through for every single episode. Special thank you, especially to you. If it's your first time coming through the show, I appreciate you coming through. Hopefully you like what you hear and you come back again real soon. Coming up on today's episode, I am going to give you my 2025 regular season record projection, whatever you want to call it, for the Washington Commanders. Not in full, but we're going to give a little bit of a taste of that. We're going to talk about Jayden Daniels, the offensive line in front of him, and so much more. But we're starting it all off with the arsenal that the Washington Commanders have put around their franchise quarterback. All of that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And it's all brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off your first purchase. With Terry McLaurin's contract situation resolved, the focus shifts to integrating Deebo Samuel fully and figuring out how to use this completely revamped running back room now that Brian Robinson Jr. is no longer in the mix. And that's where we're going to start off with the McLaurin and Samuel dynamic, the dynamic duo that we waited all offseason, all training camp, all preseason to see on the field together. We finally got a little bit of a glimpse of them together at practice there towards the end of August, but unfortunately, we didn't get that glimpse until it got time to the period where we don't get to watch full practice. We don't get to watch team drills, all those things. So we're left to just reports from players and reports from coaches kind of telling us some of the things that happened. The good news is very early on, a play action, deep route connection between Jayden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. So that's great. Terry said that he's happy and to be back, feels like he's in great shape as far as playing in week one. And his return is absolutely huge. First of all, having a pros pro, a team guy like Terry McLaurin back on the field, back in the locker room, back in the lineup is going to help bring stability. It's going to help clean up some of those drop issues that we've been talking about from this receiver group all throughout training camp and all throughout preseason. But in addition to that, what we saw from Deebo Samuel during practice, during training camp specifically, is that he is going to be a multi-tool. He's going to be a Swiss Army knife, a weapon, just however you want to describe it. That is what he's going to be for offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury, and he's going to use him all over the formation. You're going to see him left, right, slot, backfield, motioning in and out of all those areas. It's just going to be a lot of fun to watch Deebo Samuel operate within this Cliff Kingsbury offense, and I think they're going to marry really well. And the key there, of course, takes some attention away from Terry. Terry takes attention away from them. It really becomes a true pick your poison offense where opposing defenses pretty much have to choose, here's what we're going to give up. Here's what we're willing to let the offense have in hopes that they'll make a mistake or they won't see it, or that we can at least buckle down where it matters the most in the red zone and keep them from getting into the end zone. Again, there are some kinks to work out. We saw some drops from Deebo Samuel among the drops from the other receivers, but not nearly as many from him as you saw from some of the other guys, and not nearly enough to be really concerned about his long-term viability in the offense. Cliff Kingsbury, speaking of coach, summed up the duo the best, describing how they complement each other by saying, quote, Terry taking the top off, and then Deebo, just a myriad of ways you can use him, end quote. So those two guys specifically, then you get into, the other receivers like Noah Brown, Jalen Lane, potentially Luke McCaffrey continuing to take a step forward this season, things like that. And the receiver room just starts to look really nice. As far as the backfield goes, so we had that shakeup in the backfield. Brian Robinson Jr. traded to the San Francisco 49ers for a day 3 draft pick next year. Looking back at it, I think the first sign that a major change in the backfield was possible came all the way back in OTAs. I remember how surprised we all kind of were. And I'm talking for other beat reporters. And look, maybe not every beat reporter. So I'm just talking about the people that I was standing around. And we were all kind of surprised at how much they were working on the run game in the OTAs, in the mandatory minicamp. No pads early in training camp, no pads. And, the run game is a very physical part of the game, of the offense. So why did it make sense to do that even without pads on. Of course, I did my speculating, which fortunately I should say was confirmed by some of the coaches, some of the players, specifically Jacory, Croskey-Merritt, and some of the other coaches kind of off camera. Basically, just it gives you a good feel for riding with the blocks, trusting your blocks, setting them up, but also see where the ball carrier vision is, right? See where the holes are. See if they can find the hole, find the seams. And early on, Jacory, Croskey-Merritt really stood out in this dynamic, being able to not only take the ball, navigate the traffic and find the hole, but get through the hole. And when he had to make his cuts, when he had to make his little jukes and jives and all this other stuff, not losing a millisecond of his momentum. I thought it was really impressive then. It continues to be really impressive now because it's just not something you see from every NFL running back. It's really kind of a unique talent that he has there in the Washington Commanders backfield. So I think it leads to a lot of excitement for what Jacory, Croskey-Merritt could potentially be here in the near future. And because he's starting to stand out that way, because Chris Rodriguez did all the work to his body that he did in the offseason, came in fully bought in, obviously, to the process, to the program, doing exactly what the coaches are asking him to do. Austin Eckler's steady veteran presence, Jeremy McNichols, his steady veteran presence, obviously all those things kind of factoring into saying, you know what, if we're going to trade a guy, it's probably Brian Robinson Jr. Truthfully, if we're being honest about it, you look back at his career and Brian Robinson Jr. this year in training camp pretty much looked like Brian Robinson Jr. the rookie year that he came out of Alabama. And that's good because that was a pretty good back then as well. Still a pretty good back today. The bad news is you don't see the elevation. You don't see the development. You don't see the improvement that you want to see out of him. And, look, if they wanted Chris Rodriguez to get a little bit smaller, a little bit more nimble, there's reason to believe that maybe they asked Brian Robinson Jr. to do the same thing. Clearly, he didn't come in nearly as different or as improved as maybe they wanted him to be. And eventually, they just decided to move on from him one way or another. So either way, I think you can go back all the way to OTAs and kind of see at least the interest in what do we have in this running back room? Does it allow us to make a move? Because they really did a lot more run sets and a lot more run in the practices without pads than we were used to seeing in the past. General Manager Adam Peters later confirmed that the move was driven by the front office feeling, quote, really confident in the other guys in that room, end quote, which of course is really important, right? When the reports first started coming out, when we first started talking about Brian Robinson potentially being traded, one of the things I said is, look, it's hard for me to wrap my head around it when I see that this offense is still the most consistently good when Brian Robinson Jr. is on the field. You go back to the Patriots joint practice, things like that, and that was prevalent all the way there. Here, the Washington Commanders, basically they're betting on the upside versus the higher floor but lower ceiling. They want that higher ceiling. And you know what, man? I mean, the way that Dan Quinn and Adam Peters talk about this team and this is how we get down, quote unquote, and all this other stuff, it really shouldn't be that big of a surprise. Confidence that comes from Jacory, Croskey-Merritt, Bill, as we call him, who was a quote unquote standout rookie performer and one of the 3 stars in my camp point of view. He showed excellent acceleration, vision, earning reps with the first team offense, along with running back Chris Rodriguez Jr., who Coach Quinn, DQ, highlighted his improved condition and trust in him, noting that he's earned more opportunities in the passing game and on special teams. But, of course, we all know the fuel that gets the offense really going is quarterback Jayden Daniels. So let's dive into him and what's in front of him coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Game Time. NFL season is back, and honestly, there is nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on their favorite team. You know what you want to see with this new look Commanders offense? You want to see it in person. Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel on the outside, sometimes in the slot. Jacory, Croskey-Merritt hitting the hole. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a little bit of a hassle. That's why I use Game Time whenever I need tickets to sports, events, comedy, theater, whatever it is near me. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fan. Game Time is fast, it's easy, and it's backed by the Game Time 100% guarantee, where you will get authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. Plus, all the fees are included. So you turn that little toggle switch on in the app, and the price you see is the price you pay. The app is made so it's super simple. I could even see the view from my seat before I purchased, so I knew exactly what my vantage point was going to be when I downloaded the Game Time app. So you do the same. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Hopefully you took advantage of Futures Day, but even if you didn't, right now, new customers, you can bet just $5. And if that first $5 bet wins, you will get $300 in bonus bets that you can use anywhere on the FanDuel app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. I love using FanDuel because I like player props. I like same game parlays. Those are kind of my thing. So if you think Deebo Samuel is going to score the first touchdown, or maybe you want to build a same game parlay around a big day for Jacory, Croskey-Merritt, you can do whatever it is you like. You can even jump in mid-game with live betting as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, and it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Sundays. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by going to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bets. Having elite skill players is a great start, but their success hinges on Jayden Daniels' development and their performance of the offensive line in front of them. Jayden Daniels has looked every bit the part of the franchise quarterback this offseason, but the real question, of course, is going to be whether or not that O-line, particularly the right side of the O-line, can hold up its end of the bargain. That's coming up next on our season preview episode here of Locked On Commanders. To start off our week 1 coverage, the game is right around the corner, guys. We're less than a week away from real, counting, legitimate Commanders football. But before we get into that, we do have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. They already hear enough. I don't know, trust me. They want to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. And again, that is lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks ahead for helping us out. And thank you to all of you who have already done the survey and let me know you've done the survey. I appreciate you greatly. Jayden Daniels, quite simply going from rookie to leader. Honestly, he went from rookie to leader during the 2024 season, his rookie campaign already, but he's clearly taking another step here in year 2. Dan Quinn told us that the game has, quote unquote, slowed down in a way, I should say, end quote. And he can, quote unquote, process things so much more quickly here in year 2. What I saw in practice were some clear trends. He developed an incredible immediate rapport with Zach Ertz in 2024. He only continued that incredible immediate rapport with Zach Ertz in 2025. It's one of the things that I've talked about that has me confident that even though Terry missed all the training camp, all of the preseason, that they can click and they can get going very, very quickly here as the regular season gets going. Dan Quinn talked about all the banked reps they had together. Terry McLaurin said it's just like riding a bike. I said that I have confidence. However you want to word it, however you want to frame it, we just have confidence that at the end of the day, Terry McLaurin is not going to take very long to get ramped up. Now, does that mean he can run as many go routes and all that stuff against the New York Giants in week 1 as you might have seen him had he been through practices and all that stuff? Probably not. But the good news is you have enough weapons, including, of course, Deebo Samuel, which that connection is still a little bit of a work in progress. We've seen a lot of beautiful deep balls, a lot of beautiful quick hitters, things like that out of Jayden Daniels and Deebo Samuel. But we've also seen a little bit of a disconnect here and there on occasional passes. Still, they look more up to snuff, in sync, I should say, than Jayden and Terry did this time last year. And I think that's also very encouraging. Now, the biggest flag for me during training camp, heading into the regular season, for the offense was the inconsistency of said offense. Now, the good news is typically that wasn't Jayden Daniels necessarily. It wasn't Jayden being off target. It wasn't Jayden making bad throws. What it usually was an inconsistency in receivers catching the ball and inconsistencies in the offensive line being able to block during the burgundy and gold scrimmage, which I do feel like we're going to see likely again every preseason from here on out, at least as long as Dan Quinn is here. The first team unit under Jayden Daniels failed to score a single point. It was the burgundy offense was the first team offense, Jayden Daniels. The gold defense was the first team defense. The second team offense was the gold offense. The second team defense was the burgundy defense. So gold beats burgundy because the first team offense, the burgundy offense, and Jayden Daniels got shut out. They weren't allowed to score a single point. They had a couple of 3-and-outs. They failed on a couple of 4th down conversions because the first team defense, the gold defense, came out and really kind of had their way with the offensive line. And then there were some drops along the way as usual. Now, in football, we always say the defense always starts a little bit further ahead, although tackling on the defense usually starts a little bit behind. So all those things you have to take into consideration as well. Now, speaking of starting off fast or starting off not so fast, the offensive line. Trading for left tackle Laramie Tunsil gives you an all-pro caliber Pro Bowl, 5-time Pro Bowl left tackle to secure that blind side. For Jayden Daniels, you move left tackle Brandon Coleman from last year into left guard. And so far, that duo, as much as we've gotten to see them, because Brandon Coleman has been dealing with some injuries, they look pretty good. Brandon Coleman certainly looks comfortable in his role. Good news is he's been back at practice lately, including a padded practice on Thursday before this last little break before the regular season begins. And again, all signs point to that unit looking pretty solid on the left side there. Now, early in camp, I was a little bit worried about rookie right tackle, first-round draft pick Josh Conerly Jr., because he did struggle a little bit in some of his past sets, struggled to set his anchor, struggled against some of the competition he was going against. But we also talked about needing to remember the competition that he's going against, right? In Washington Commanders practice alone, he's going up against Dorrance Armstrong Jr., who we've already talked about extensively, getting a lot of pressure in 2024, getting into the backfield on run plays in 2024, just needing to finish a little bit better. So he's a veteran with plenty of experience under his belt, going up against a rookie who is not only a rookie in the NFL, but he's also a first-year right tackle after starring as a left tackle for the Oregon Ducks. So all of that mixed in, that's a little bit of context you have to remember. Then there's Von Miller. I mean, look, I haven't seen Von Miller rush off the left side, the offensive left side against Laramie Tunsil, but I guarantee you that if he did, if you gave those two 10 reps, you probably go 5 and 5 for each guy. That is Von Miller. So, it's hard to kind of fault the rookie for not being able to stonewall Von Miller in his first NFL training camp. Then we go to New England, and New England doesn't have Von Miller. They don't have those guys, but they do have Harold Landry, who's a pretty good pass rusher in his own rights. Then you go to the Cincinnati Bengals, and they don't have a great pass rush defense either, but they still have guys who have experience, certainly more experience than Josh Conerly Jr., et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It starts sounding a lot like excuses. The good news is the reason I can sit here and tell you it wasn't excuses, it was context, is because Josh Conerly Jr. has also been getting better and better and better. And the Josh Conerly Jr. right tackle that we saw at the end of training camp is day and night better than the right tackle we saw at the beginning of training camp because of those reps, because of those opportunities, to the point where they gave Laramie Tunsil a vet rest day one day, and they said, hey, Josh, you've been doing such a good job at right. You know what? Spend a day at left. Go back to what you love originally. Go back to where you're comfortable. And I will tell you a little bit of that, Bobby Johnson, if you caught the interview here on Locked On Commanders, O-line coach Bobby Johnson, he also acknowledged, too, look, you never know what's going to happen during the course of the season. We may need to kick Josh back over to the left side for some reason, so you don't want him to completely forget how to play that left side. Now, to start the season, I do expect your starting offensive line to be Laramie Tunsil on the left tackle, Brandon Coleman at left guard, Tyler Biadasz at center, Nick Allegretti at right guard, and Andrew Wiley at right tackle. Now, I know some people have floated the idea maybe Andrew Wiley would be better as the starting right guard. He moves inside. Nick Allegretti becomes depth. Josh Conerly starts at right tackle. I'm not going to put out of the image that there's like a possibility that, that unit, that organization kind of taking shape at some point in time, depending on what happens during the course of the season. But right now, I think Andrew Wiley, Josh Conerly Jr. rotating at right tackle just makes the most sense. And Andrew Wiley is your first guy in that position. Sam Cosmi on the physically unable to perform list to start the season, so he will miss the first 4 games. Once he comes back, obviously Nick Allegretti goes to the bench, and I think by then, so by week 5 at the earliest is when Sam Cosmi can play. I think by then, Josh Conerly Jr. probably your firm starting right tackle for the Washington Commanders. While the offense works to find its consistency, the defense has been spending the entire offseason looking for a strength, and the strength to try to become the strength of the football team. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Locked On Commanders brought to you in part by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here, and if you haven't joined a league yet, now is the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy this year. I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether it's your first year or you're starting in your millionth league. After seeing Jayden Daniels command of the offseason in training camp, he is a guy that I'm targeting in all of my drafts, and I'm happy to say that in my money league, got him on my roster. He looks ready to take that leap, and that is the kind of player that can win you a championship, and Yahoo Fantasy has more ways to play than ever. Try the brand new Guillotine League mode where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week, and just get your crew together for a classic private league, or you can join Public League. The NFL season kicks off on September 4th this week, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders is also brought to you in part by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth. When you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. Just like the Commanders are managing their assets on the offensive line, you need a clear picture of your finances. I linked my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a couple of subscriptions that I wasn't using anymore. Got to canceling those bad boys, save me a little bit of money every single month. And that little bit of money every month sure does add up. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's all one word, LOCKEDONNFL. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNFL. The defense's strong performance has been powered by established players like linebacker Frankie Luvu and the emergence of safety Quan Martin, who Dan Quinn says has, quote, quietly also become really one of the leaders around here, end quote. And I love to see it. You love to hear it because I was having, we'll call it a debate. It was a spirited conversation, nothing nasty, nothing, no hard feelings or anything. But I was having a conversation with another media member over the offseason who thought that they were going to draft a safety, that they were going to draft a replacement for Quan Martin. And then in free agency, when Will Harris got signed, they said, well, maybe they won't draft him. Maybe they just signed him. And I said, nah, man, I think Quan Martin and Will Harris are going to be your starting safeties once Jeremy Chin wasn't coming back. And that person disagreed with me. And, we agreed to disagree. And fortunately, I have been proven correct by Quan Martin continuing to develop and getting his second year. This is third year in the NFL, but he gets his second year full training camp as just a safety. He doesn't have to worry about cross-training, doing this, doing that, doing all this other craziness. He can just be a safety, and he took advantage of it all training camp, all offseason, opportunistic, tip passes, overthrows, whatever it was. Quan Martin on the spot, just trying to make the play. And if he can do that, I'll tell you right now, if he can perform the way he did in training camp during the regular season, I think 5 interceptions is certainly within range. We'll see if he can get there, right? How about this unit, the secondary, going from a question mark to an exclamation point in the secondary? Second-year corner Mikey Sanders still moving back inside. Really looks sticky in coverage a lot of times. Looked really good blitzing off the edge, which is something that we looked forward to in his rookie season. But fortunately for him, unfortunately for the other players, Mikey had to move outside because, as we might remember, the outside cornerback play last season, especially early on, not what you wanted to see. And the Washington Commanders made a lot of effort to go improve that. They traded for Marshawn Lattimore. He's out his first full training camp. He's looking pretty solid. Mikey Sanders still has that experience. He's moving inside because Trey Amos is coming in from Ole Miss as a second-round draft pick by way of a couple other schools. And then you've still got some veterans. I know Noah Igbenogany, there was trade talk about him right there at the 53-man roster deadline. So we'll see what happens with him and potentially getting moved at some point in time. Or not. Wide receiver Kendrick Bourne is scheduled to visit with the Washington Commanders on Tuesday after he visits the San Francisco 49ers on Monday. If the Commanders lock him down on Tuesday, potentially Igbenogany could be the guy that is let go to make room on the roster. We'll have to see. So the only question really for this defense now, which, by the way, reminder, first-team defense dominant against first-team offense in the Burgundy and Gold game. Now, it was first-team offense minus Terry McLaurin, first-team offense minus Noah Brown, so that certainly matters. The only question now for this defense is it going to translate to Sundays, or was it really just you're really good against your offense that you practice against every single week? We'll have to see. Speaking of what's to come, final record prediction. So this is that time of year. We've got one more episode that is going to drop before we get ready to head to practice. We've got one more episode. Then we're going to do a mailbag episode, and then the next episode after that will literally be in-season press conference training practice, I should say, training camp. Practice notes and player interviews. So really looking forward to that. Also be our first time getting in the locker room in Ashburn. So really looking forward to get my own eyes on. I've seen pictures, but I want to get my eyes on the locker room there as well. So when I look at the schedule, when I look at the roster, I see a clear path to double-digit wins. I expect the Commanders to get off to a hot start. I'm looking at 3-1 in the first 4 games. First 4 games at home against the Giants, on the road, short week, Green Bay Packers Thursday night, week 2. Then you're back home against the Raiders, and then we're back on the road against the Atlanta Falcons. Those 4 games, I think the Commanders go 3-1. Through the next 6 after that, I see them going no worse than 3-3. Hopefully 4-2, 5-1, 6-0 would be great, but I think no worse than 3-3 before getting a big win over the Dolphins in Spain in week 11. That puts them at 7-4 at worst in my projection by the November bye week. Coming out of the bye for the final stretch, I'm going to pencil them in for another 3-3 finish at worst down the stretch. That gives Washington, to me, a floor of 10 wins this season. And given the fact this schedule is much more difficult this year, et cetera, more travel, all that good stuff, I think a 10-win season could definitely make you feel better about this team than a 12-win season did last year based on how they win the games that they win. I will be doing a full game-by-game breakdown, get into the specifics of that no less than 10-win schedule coming up on the next episode of Locked On Commanders. Speaking of that is going to do it for today's episode. Next episode, I'll have that record prediction game by game, but we're also going to do some award candidates. We're going to do some superlatives, have a little bit of fun before the season gets started on Wednesday. In the meantime, if you got questions or comments, you can text me directly by becoming a Locked On Commanders insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. Got a handful of new insiders over the weekend getting geared up for the regular season. Love to see it. So if you want to become an insider along with them, be an active part of these mailbag episodes coming up, joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders, and you get so much more than just that. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL season previews on Locked On NFL. Every division winner, breakout stars, and Super Bowl contender in 8-episode series with everything you need to know about the NFL season. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And of course, if you didn't know, I am part of the Wednesday afternoon Locked On NFL show. So come through every Wednesday afternoon, if not more, to see your boy talk about the NFL from a national aspect. And to the everydayers, I see you every day. I appreciate you every day. And I thank you specifically for coming through today. Until next time, stay safe, be kind to one another. We'll talk again real soon right here on Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.